Thanks for joining me for part 2 of our series here, and today we're going to be talking specifically about arrow selection. Now, some of you may be wondering why we would go from the bow inspection piece to arrow selection and not skip straight to the bow setup portion of the video. And the reason for that is you want to make sure that when you start setting up your bow and you start attaching your rests and you start doing those things, and then you move on to the tuning process, that you are shooting the exact arrow that you plan to hunt with. For instance, if you decide to tune your bow or set up your bow and you grab an old Easton XX78 aluminum shaft or a standard size shaft or something like that and do all your setup and tuning with that shaft and then decide, nah, I want to go with a micro diameter arrow, you could have some tuning variances down the line there, and that's definitely something that you want to try to avoid in that process. So when it comes to arrow selection, you need to pay very close attention to your bow's poundage, because your bow's poundage will directly impact the spine of arrow that you're going to shoot. Now, arrow manufacturers have done a fantastic job in beefing up their websites, and manufacturers like Easton, Gold Tip, Carbon Express, if you go to their website, you're going to find spine charts and things like that, and you can look at your poundage and match up the spine right there on the website, and then you won't have any problems with anything like that, and then you won't be shooting in underspined or overspined. So let's talk a little bit about what spine is. Spine, in layman's terms, is the thickness of the arrow, and you want to make sure you're spined appropriately. So on an arrow, you will see numbers like 500, 400, 340, 350, 200. That is the arrow's spine and not the arrow's weight. Don't get confused on that. Those arrows will also have a GPI rating, which is grains per inch. Now, those are two totally different things, and we'll talk about grains per inch in a minute, but right now we want to cover spine. So spine is an arrow's stiffness. So for instance, if you are pulling 70 pounds and you go and you shoot a 500 spine arrow, you are going to have severe trouble getting that arrow to recover in flight. It is going to be flexing like crazy coming out of the bow, because the higher the number on the arrow when it comes to spine rating, the thinner the wall of that arrow, so the thinner the thickness, so the less stiff it is. So if you are shooting a 500 spined arrow, that would be more for like a 45 type pound bow. If you're shooting 70 pounds, you're going to be looking for something above 400, 350, 340, those types of things. But make sure you match your spine size to your bow's poundage, and that's going to keep you in a good range. Now, once you get your spine size set, now you can start thinking about weight, because arrow manufacturers have done a really good job in giving you different options. So for instance, a guy I know, he shoots a 340 spined arrow, and I shoot a 340 spined arrow. However, his arrow is built a little bit more for speed, and his arrow is around 7 grains per inch. Mine, on the other hand, is also a 340 spined arrow, but it is around 8.3 grains per inch. So even though they're both spined the same, they are built for a little bit different purposes. Some arrows are built for speed, some arrows are built for kinetic energy, some arrows are more of a tweener that are going to put you right where you want to be. And that's where you have to start thinking also with arrow selection about why you're choosing the shaft that you are choosing when it comes to hunting. Now, if you're looking for a lot of speed and you're looking for something like that, you can definitely find arrows that are suited for that. If you're a whitetail guy and you really want a heavy arrow for penetration and you also want to keep that arrow quiet, it may be a lot better for you to go with a much heavier shaft, somewhere up around 480, even into 500 grains. Same if you're hunting elk or something like that. My arrow finished weight is around 407 grains. Like I said, mine's kind of a tweener. It's right there. I'm still getting speed, but I'm also getting excellent penetration. Understand that there are arrows created for different purposes, so try to match the style of arrow to what you're going to be doing most of your hunting with, and decide that it is going to serve that exact purpose. Once you've done that, you've got your spine selected, you've got the arrow choice, you've figured out your grains per inch, the next thing you're going to need to consider is your insert or outsert. Now, I'm the type of guy, I like to shoot the outsert that comes with my arrows. For instance, I shoot Easton Axis 4mm long range. They come with a half out type insert. It actually sticks out of the shaft, and that's where you get the half-out type of name for this. It is an aluminum insert, and that's what I go with. However, manufacturers have done a great job here too. You can also get titanium inserts. You can get steel inserts if you want to boost that weight in the front of your arrow. So you'll have decisions to make based on that. Again, it's all based on your preference. It's all based on what you want to do from a hunting standpoint or target standpoint, depending on your needs. Something else you're going to need to consider is the knock of your arrow. Again, I'm a standard guy. I shoot the standard knock usually that comes with my arrow. Now, there are custom knocks out there from companies, and when guys go custom, a lot of times that means a lighted knock. Lighted knocks are great. I know lots of guys that shoot them. Sometimes I'll shoot them when I'm whitetail hunting. They really help you track your arrow in flight, and when you're tuning and you're shooting long range, it will really help you detect any knock travel. A lighted knock really will, so that is something to consider. However, do know that if you make the switch from a standard knock to a lighted knocks will weigh more, so you are adding more weight to the back end of your arrow. So if you're tuned up with one knock and you switch to a lighted knock, you may have to do a little bit of tuning, and your arrow is going to get a little bit heavier in that back end. So make sure you keep that in mind. Another thing you're going to need to consider is what type of fletching are you going to run on your arrows. Now, some arrows come straight from the factory. They're fletched up, you cut them down or have the pro shop cut them down, and you are done. There's nothing left to do. You are ready to go. However, if you want to build up your own arrows, if you want to do that, you can get bare shafts, and there are literally thousands of fletch options out there, and that can make things kind of tricky. So here's kind of a rule that I live by. If you are going to shoot a mechanical broadhead, which I do, I like a shorter, somewhere between 2 inches and 2.5 inches vein, a low profile vein that is semi-stiff. I don't want something that is super, super stiff. I don't need a ton of stabilization because I'm not shooting a fixed blade broadhead. And I like the fact that a low profile vein creates less noise in flight, and I just really like the flight that I get with them. Now, if you are more of a fan of fixed blade broadheads, you may want to go with a little bit longer vein. That's an option. You can also go with a little bit stiffer vein. Boning makes a great vein. It's a legendary vein. It's their 2.0 Blazer. It's been around forever. And they're a tall, stiff vein, and they do stabilize well. I have noticed that they are a little louder in flight. So that's something to consider. So you're going to have to consider your fletch options, but this kind of gives you a jumping off point to go, okay, I got to get an arrow that's spined correctly. I got to decide on my grains per inch. I got to know what I'm going to use this arrow for in the hunting world. I got to decide what type of insert system I want to run in that arrow, whether I want to go standard aluminum or whether I want to go titanium or steel. Then I got to make a knock choice. Am I going to want a lighted knock, or am I going to want to stay completely standard? Then the last thing with that type of consideration is your fletch options, and there's many of them out there. You've just got to find what's right for you. And if you're a guy like me that likes to test and tinker, it's a lot of fun to shell out a little bit of money, get a bunch of different inserts, get a bunch of different fletch options, some different knocks, and have fun playing. And we'll talk about that more as we move into tuning and setup, which is going to be coming in the fourth part of this series. But now we're going to move on to the actual arrow build.